Before you can create a healthy relationship with others, you first have to create a healthy relationship with yourself. Welcome to Let's Talk About It with your host, Dr. Janie Lacy. Janie is a nationally respected psychotherapist, and on this show, she and her featured guests will help you discover and break patterns in your life that can contribute to self-sabotage and unhealthy relationships. Now, here is Dr. Janie Lacy.
This simple yet powerful mission has led him on an incredible journey to provide one thing: value. In all his content and communication, that's exactly what you'll receive. And he's here today to do just that. He's a 3-time international best-selling author, a top 100 business coach, the executive producer of Entrepreneur's #1 digital business show, Elevator Pitch, and the host of the Top Entrepreneur podcast, The Playbook. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to have a conversation about success, one of my favorite topics.
Well, we certainly are glad that you are here, and we want to learn so much from you. So for those of those that are going to be listening or watching, and they don't know who David Meltzer is, who is David Meltzer? I just gave you all the accolades, and I'm sure I can read so much more about you, but who do you want us to know who you are?
You know, I'm a person who lives in radical humility through a journey of 3 worlds. First, I was born into a world of not enough. I had a dad leave at 5 years old and a single mom who was a 2nd grade teacher used to pack my dinner in a station wagon to take her 6 kids around to fill up greeting card turnstiles at convenience stores just so we could eat. A good day out was 2 large French fries at McDonald's shared was a huge treat growing up. So I always lived in this world of not enough, that everything happened to me. Why can't I have this? Why didn't I have that? And I decided that I wanted to do one thing: to make a lot of money. I felt I had this extraordinary mom, these extraordinary siblings. All my siblings went to the Ivy Leagues. They actually graduated summa cum laude from Harvard, Penn, Columbia. They're amazing souls. But my mom, you know, we had a 2-bedroom apartment for 6 kids. We had nothing. And I thought in my mind, man, I'm so blessed. If I just had money, then it would complete all the happiness in my life. Everything that I felt my mom deserved, I could buy: a house and a car and food sometimes. And so I decided that I would put my attention and intention on making a lot of money. I thought money would buy me love and buy me happiness. And I established my formula for success inherently because I was so focused on money. Now, maybe I was focused in on the wrong thing, which later on we'll learn from the other worlds, but I learned how to enjoy the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit pursuit of my own potential of making a lot of money. And so I followed what other people wanted for me. I was going to be a doctor, and I realized, you know, I hated hospitals. And I was 18 years old. My brother actually told me one of the best pieces of advice. He said, "David, you need to be more interested than interesting. You're pre-med and you don't even know what a doctor does." And then my mom had a famous saying, right? Doctor, lawyer, or failure. So I decided I'd be a lawyer, and I graduated law school as an oil and gas litigator, which is, by the way, the highest paying law job out of law school, which is why I went to the law school I did. I, decided to be more interested. But ironically, because I was money motivated, I always kept my options open for someone to pay me more. In 1992, there was this new thing called the internet. And despite my mom telling me it was going to be a fad, that it would never last, I decided to take a job in the internet. And 9 months out of law school, I was a millionaire. 3 years later, we sold the company for $3.4 billion to Thomson Reuters. And by the time I was 30, I was a multimillionaire running Samsung's phone division, the world's first smartphone, the PCE phone, married to my dream girl who I met in the 4th grade, had everything I ever dreamed of. And this is where I call the next world of just enough. It was just enough for me, and it was empty. I bought things I didn't need when I wasn't happy. I bought more things I didn't need. I bought different things I didn't need. I buy things to impress people. I'd even buy, Janie, things to impress people I didn't like, just to be happy. And this put me into a terrible spiral. I ended up not only being a multimillionaire, but I ended up, as you suggested, CEO of Leigh Steinberg. So the most notable sports agency in the world. So not only was I a multimillionaire, but I had access to everything, even things billionaires couldn't go to. I was on the sidelines, the locker rooms, the cabins, the backstage passes. And this spiraled me until finally my wife was the only one. There's a book by Stephen Hertz, Don't Take Yes for an Answer. She stopped telling me yes. And she told me she wasn't happy. She was going to leave me and that I better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, or I was going to end up dead. And that was the major shift of my success. And I ended up taking stock and moving into this world that I live now in, which we can discuss more, called the world of more than enough, an abundant world that's more than enough of everything for everyone.
There is so much there, David. And I certainly enjoy being in the spaces that you are, because you do bring so much value. But there's some things I want to unpack there, because I think
Please.
a lot of people can relate to it. When did you know? Because now you're able to name it. So some people, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're just trying to find their way in life, but what they're operating from is that not enoughness. So when did you know, where we can glean from your wisdom, that that's what it was for you? And you're able to name it clearly now when you look at your history. And it's truly a rags to riches story, which I think is phenomenal, because it shows anyone can make it. What can you share with us?
Well, I was blessed because not only was it a rags to riches story, but 2 years after my transformation, I lost everything. I lost over $100 million. So I went back to rags. And I think this occurrence in my life allowed me to gain perspective. And you know what perspective I gained? And whether you define it as not enough, just enough, not enough is where it happens to you like a victim. Just enough is where it happens for you, buying things you don't need to impress people you don't like, or through you, was a matter of understanding a second currency in my life. And when I lost everything, I started to realize I was only missing one currency. I had plenty of money before, but I had no faith. Currency as well is an object of energy that we put into the flow to get what we want. And there was a simple thing that I was missing, which allowed me to define, and hopefully others out there will realize this, is in the world of not enough, we're always searching for what other people want for us, what's missing, what we don't want. And there's a mathematical equation of luck that says what you pay attention to and what you give your intention to equals the coincidences in your life. And so I started to realize that I had put my attention and intention on what was missing, what I didn't have, or what other people wanted for me. And what I realized was there was no search for why. There was no search for, health, wealth. There was no search for worthiness and happiness. What I realized through faith is that I am happy. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am worthy. What am I doing to interfere with it? See, that paradigm shift says one thing. And I think everyone out there, I don't care what religion, philosophy, spirituality you adhere to, I do not care. But I truly believe that if you want to be successful, passionate, purposeful, profitable, if you want to reconcile the world of thought and the world of time, reconcile money with faith, you have to believe in two things. Number one, there is something bigger than you. I think that's essential for faith. And the second component is you need to believe there's something bigger than you, an omniscient, all-powerful source that's bigger than you. But that source, that thing that's bigger than you, cares about you more than your mama care about you, more than you care about your own children. If you believe these two things, if you're going to take anything away from success today, is the more you believe there's something bigger than you that cares about you, every single punishment in your life becomes a promotion. Every single punishment in your life becomes protection. Just like when you were 3 years old and you went to go put your hand on the stove because it looked so interesting. It seemed as if that's what I want. and you reached out, and your mom, who had never hit you before, just slapped your hand with full force and screamed at you, and you were 3 thinking, why is she punishing me? What did I do? Why can't that? This is what I want. No, your mom was protecting you and promoting you to something better, a better situation, teaching you a lesson. That's what the omniscient, all-powerful source does. And I don't care what religion, spirituality, or philosophy you believe in. I truly believe you need to believe something bigger than you cares about you that much. And therefore, success will be in the enjoyment of the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. You will have and live with gratitude and forgiveness and accountability. You will be inspired. You will know what you are, and you'll stop, drop, and roll, or clear, spend minutes and moments between ego-based consciousness with these needs that create interference and your truth.
Well, David, we can unpack that in and of itself, but I want to take a turn, and it's all relatable and connected to goodness. Those that are actually watching the video can see it behind me. And a lot of people will be getting those for Christmas gifts this year. Awesome book. But you write about everything in life, from the construction of building to a relationship, requires a solid foundation or it will crumble. If certain things are not in place, you're not able to support all the other things you wish to accomplish. So bring this down to those that are listening, wherever they are on a business entrepreneur journey, or whether they're high in their company. What does it mean in terms of business and business relationships to have that proper foundation and all of your experiences and wisdom and success? What can we learn from that?
Yeah, but before you do anything, you need to know what you want with these 4 values. Personal. What do you want personally? Experientially. Giving wise. What are you going to produce and provide value? And most importantly, and counterintuitively, you need to receive. And I want to stress this point because as part of the foundation, and I'm going to use my mom as an example, there's 3 steps to understanding receiving. The first is appreciation. See, most people appreciate what they have, which means they add value to it. If your home appreciates it, it adds value. So if we can focus in on what we do have today, we're at the right place at the perfect time, and we appreciate it, it adds value. If then we acknowledge it, we acquire the knowledge of it because it's taken away or given away. That's the only way you acquire the knowledge. So the old saying, the more we give, the more we receive, is correct, but they forget to teach you the predecessor to the more you give, the more you receive. And that's, you can't give what you don't have. And so what happens to a lot of moms, especially, and I'm talking from personal experience, is my mom gave her health, her wealth, everything of herself away to her children, her 6 children that she raised by herself, and the community as a 2nd grade teacher, a Sunday school teacher, all the things that she did for the community. And she always appreciated what she had, but guess what? She never asked for more. So the vessel closed on itself because there was nothing to stretch it out farther. And she had less and less to appreciate until guess what? She ended up exactly where she didn't want to be. Lost her health, gave that away. Lost her wealth, gave that away. Not out of anything other than generosity and humility, but the humility was misdirected into, I need to give what I receive, instead of the greatest humility is asking for help and asking for more. See, nothing makes the universe feel better than the appreciation of asking for more. Think about a parent. You're able to give your kid whatever they want. How good does it feel? They want that Xbox, and you give it for Christmas, and that, oh my God, it feels so good. Well, this is what I think faith is there for, is that if I hear the humble being, I appreciate everything I have, I'll give it all away, but I'm going to ask for more. So it expands and grows. So this foundation of personal, experiential giving and receiving values, I take inventory every day, not afraid of being a hypocrite and telling you, hey, I don't know what I don't know. There's only 2 types of people, ignorant people and ignorant people, right? Ignorant, humble people admit they don't know what they don't know. Ignorant, arrogant people pretend like they actually know what they're talking about. And if we do that, then you'll know who you can help and who can help you. Then you can know how, which allows you to prioritize, which will give you your now. then you can apply your why instead of searching for it, knowing you're happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy. Figure out what you're doing to interfere with it. More of the abundance will come your way.
You know what I think about what I'm hearing you say is a couple of things. Is I always like to say, David, that we have to, you know, many of us, including you, we get degrees in other people's school, that we have to go to the school of us and understand who we are. And then with your beautiful soul of a mom, sounds like, you know, what happens for a lot of women is that there's an empty cup, and that have to be a place of abundance that we have to learn. And that's part of the foundation that you give from, once you know who you are and you're coming from the overflow versus that empty cup.
It's so true. We can't give what we don't have. And, you know, so many people, there's two things that frustrate me the most in this journey of success and happiness is, number one, that everyone will tell you how good it feels to give. But for some reason, we don't want to make people feel good, because we're always saying, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to ask them for help. It's so counterintuitive. The only other thing that is worse than that is that the majority of people on earth not only won't ask for help, even though it feels so good to let somebody give. We know that ourselves. But worse, we go to sleep every night, and the majority of the people on earth go to sleep and they wake up more tired than when they went to bed. And they don't see anything wrong with that. If you and I went out to eat and we ate for 2 hours, appetizers, dinner, dessert, couple drinks, and we left the restaurant and looked at each other and said, whew, man, am I hungry? We would think there was something wrong with the way we were eating. And we would probably change what we had done the previous 2 hours next time. But people are just tubes. They live their life, food in, food out, not even thinking that the purpose of going to bed is to rest, to elevate myself, to plateau and grow, not to live the myth of Sisyphus, like in The Stranger. You don't have to push a boulder all day long to the top of the hill just to have it roll to the bottom. You actually should recover and access more information in your sleep so you have a better statistical success, more happiness and success tomorrow.
Absolutely love it, David. You know, I this is not a psychological term, but it's like the Walking Dead is what I say. It's like you just do what you know to do, and versus being intentional. And there's research that supports that when we sleep and we get cycles of sleep, that we have a wider window for the stress tolerance window. So when life happens, we are better prepared because we truly are living present. So absolutely appreciate that share. So you also discuss, and I love all the key elements in the book connected to goodness, but in key element 2, you talk about the experience values. And I want to glean from some of your experience, but in order to learn, you talked about we must make mistakes. So what are the experiences? You went through some as you kind of described who you were around belief system, but what are your experiences? And when you look back that were painful, but you are like now, because you're in a better place and continuously taking inventory and have that growth mindset, that you're like, thank God I had that experience, because I would not be here today if it was not for that. I mean, what can you share with us?
Well, one is just being poor. You know, I speak all around the world and I love starting my speeches. I grew up with nothing. Who here grew up with nothing? Half the audience raises their hand and I say, I feel sorry for the rest of you, because nothing can teach abundance quicker than not having anything, and an appreciation. So I'm blessed with growing up poor. I also am blessed by losing everything. And you know, that acknowledgement, I suggested the only way we can acknowledge what we have is if we give it all away or we lose it all. And that's when you truly know what you had and what you should or should not have valued. And so the paradigm of money, to me, money was always important, and it still is. My motto is make a lot of money to help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. My mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. It's going to take a lot of money to do that, to allow me to do that. And so moreover, what I've learned about it is that money will not buy you love or happiness, but it will allow you to shop. And through my experiences, and if I shop for the right things for the right reasons, I will be happy. And money is a catalyst. It'll allow me to shop for more things for the right reasons. And when I say the right reasons, I'm going to give an example because it changed my life. And it's a young African-American kid who I love, Tay Sweat. And he told me he's so humble. The kid invested his only $5,000 while all his friends made fun of him. He borrowed $5,000 to get a self-help coach. And he's a multimillionaire today. Anyway, he drives a Lambo. And I said, Tay, man, I said, your ego needs that stroking? He said, what are you talking about? I said, I used to buy Ferraris and Lambos and planes, and I did it to impress people I liked and didn't like. You don't need that, man. You're much bigger than that. He says, why are you assuming the reason that I bought my Lambo is the same reason you bought yours? He said, money doesn't buy you love or happiness, but if you shop for the right things for the right reasons, you will be successful. I said, well, why you buy that Lambo then? Is it a good investment? You're going to tell me, buy on emotion for logical reasons, that old argument? He said, no. He said, I bought it because I'm an inner city kid, and people look at me and the first thing they say in my Lambo is, how'd you get that car? Playing basketball, doing music. How'd you get that car? And he says, and I make the biggest impact on everyone's life when I tell them I got it from reading books and teaching people. I said, whoa, that's a great investment right there. Money's buying love and happiness. When you buy the things for the right reasons, you buy the right things. I buy community centers in Africa to empower thousands of communities with women who are completely, discriminated against, and has changed my life. And so I want to, through my experience, share the practices that people can have, that what, who, how, now, and why, the values of gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and effective communication, to live inspired, to clear the interference between you and what you already are. And all those experiences in my life of having no money, having a lot of money, having no money, and now showing through my activity I get paid for and activity I don't get paid for, that you can even have more by allowing it to come, by clearing the interference instead of going to get it.
So money truly being that vehicle to make greater impact when you're also intentional. So, I imagine, David, with all of your experience and all the business deals and all the different life experiences you've had, in your experience, this is one of the questions that I think it would be really helpful for a lot of people that are on the come up, as we say, right? So what is your meter for detecting someone of good character? I know you've talked a little bit about this in the book, just good character, and moving forward in a deal or a partnership or a collaboration, or even allowing people to get close to you. What can we learn from your experience with so many people, so many business deals, of what you use as your meter for detecting someone of good character?
Yeah, for me, there's no way that we will know that because we're not with someone all the time. So what I look for everything is within myself. I give meaning to everything that I see. I know my values. And I know I have non-negotiables, and I put time to my non-negotiables, minimum of time to my health, minimum of time to my family, minimum of time to the activity I get paid for. But once I determine this who, I trust everyone, but I vet them. And I am a voracious vetter. I ask questions. And what I determine through either the initial interaction or a longer term interaction is I use a spectrum of evaluation, and it's called the great chain of feeding. And so character to me is almost irrelevant because it's arbitrary, capricious, and subjective. But what's not is how I feel. And so if somebody feeds me, I'm going to feed them. The lesser they feed me, the more I'll let them fall away. If they bleed me, I will fire them. 80% of our time, emotion, value, money is spent on things that bleed us because we don't use the great chain of feeding. We are not cognizant. And what you will find are those people that resonate, that sit at the same frequency, vibration, the same elevated awareness that you sit at. And it's not just individuals, but collective consciousnesses around that. This intuition of feeding and bleeding, this quantitative analysis that can be utilized to find out feeding and bleeding, determinative upon personal, professional, business situation, but using a simple spectrum of let's spend the majority of our time, emotion, and money on things that feed us. And I had a big oil client. They had a $20 million client that they wanted to double into a $40 million client. It was taking up all these resources. They had one of their first customers, a $2 billion client. And I said, hey, fire the $20 million client. They said, what do you mean? That's going to double to 40. I said, take all the resources, move it over to the $2 billion client that's feeding you. Watch it turn into a $4 billion client in less time with less aggravation. You're not putting attention and intention on what feeds you. Like most people, you're putting your attention and intention on what bleeds us.
What I'm also hearing in that is reciprocal relationships in that sense. And then I also hear the bleeding is how I'm interpreting it, David, is there's so many opportunists out there. And if you are in tune with your value system, and as you mentioned, your non-negotiables, it'll weed some of that out almost systematically because you are showing up and you know who you are.
Yeah, you actually, can trust the universe that you're being protected. Take just social media, for example, because I never thought I'd be the middle-aged mutant turtle on the internet that I am, with more, blue check marks and follower than all my kids combined. But it happened. But the haters are so interesting because, my wife, who does not like to hear anything negative about me, which I adore about her, she doesn't like it. And I tell her it's protecting me. Because anyone that would believe what that person said is not somebody that I want around me. So they're promoting things for the people who are not supposed to be with me so they can stay away from me. And because they have a voice, for those people that are aligned with my frequency and values and character, they'll protect me. So they bring energy to the people who already love me, who are aligned with me. So not only are they protecting me from the bleeders, but they're feeding the feeders to feed me more. And it's a wonderful dichotomy. So, anyone that says negative things, I'm like, here's my cell phone. I'd love and appreciate to hear your perspective, but I feel to myself, oh, I'm so blessed that I have this person here that's going to protect me and aggregate all the other people of like-mindedness to go ahead and join him and stay away from me.
I love how you just eloquently put that. A couple other things that I
That's
think
not how my wife puts it, by the way. She usually uses an F word or something. I'm a kick his.
I would imagine that she gets really protective over her dear hubby. I understand. But I don't know if you've seen David, the new Will Smith movie, the recent movie King Richard. But Richard writes, and I thought this plays into your entrepreneur podcast, the name The Playbook, and I wanted to hear your thoughts around this. Richard writes a 78-page plan to skyrocket the girls' tennis to success. And then, there's just so much there that I could just dissect that movie, and I hope it does get an Oscar. But when you think about, what are your thoughts on what needs to happen for a person to plan for their success and their goals, especially using a lot of sports analogy, which I hear you use, and your podcast named The Playbook. What are your thoughts about that for those that are listening and watching?
Yeah, you need to plan every day. You need to plan. That's why I have the what, the who, the how, the now, and the why. You need to know what you want every day, because if you take inventory of what you want every day, this plan, you're going to take into consideration your intermediate and long-term objectives, but you're allowing yourself to evolve and change, right? You know that if you come up with a well-developed plan, it's the best way to make God laugh at you. And so where your focus lies is not attaching your emotions to some outcome that automatically create resistance the closer you come, but more importantly, allowing you to attach your emotions to what it takes to get there, the what, the who, the how, and the now. See, I start every day with that inventory. I don't believe in, a set plan for the long term. I believe in a set plan for the day that is trajectory or projected towards the intermediate and long-term objectives that I have that are just milestones. The problem with man-made constructs of time, amounts, and other things that are often included in plans is, for example, I have a lot of business coaching clients that'll say, Dave, I want to make $10 million by the end of the year. I said, no, you don't. I said, because every day you get closer to the end of the year and you don't have the 10 million, you're creating more resistance to what you want. See, we want to deal in speed, right? We want to learn them. I tell people all the time, you want 3 simple rules. Do your best, learn something, and have fun. you want to double the amount of money that you make as fast as you can, you'll have far less resistance and get far beyond the milestone of $10 million. Someone tells me they want $10 million by the end of the year. The first question out of my mouth is, why are you limiting yourself? Right? And also, why are you creating resistance to what you want automatically by the man-made construct of time? And the perception of time is the closer we get to the end time, the less time we have, the more resistance there is, because we're now getting in a hurry. Oh my God, it's not going to get done, because we can't see the compound interest of good behavior and also bad behavior. So I encourage everyone, you talk about this enjoyment of, and Will Smith, by the way, this is classic because it applies perfectly. Will Smith was in the movie of my friend's book called The Pursuit of Happiness, which he probably deserved an Academy Award for as well. If he didn't get one, I don't even know. But here's the funny thing. I told Chris Gardner, the author of that movie, I said, hey, man, you got this book wrong. He said, what are you talking about, Dave? I said, because there is no pursuit of happiness. Happiness is the pursuit. And I think that paradigm shift allows people to lessen the resistance and get far beyond where they hope to be.
It's like that old saying, it's not necessarily destination, it's the journey. And if we're embracing
Exactly.
it along the way, awesome. Since you mentioned earlier about your beautiful wife, Julie,
yes,
I'm in the relationship space as well. So I would love to hear your take on this. What do you think that your beautiful wife, Julie, would share with other women? We're all at her feet and we're asking her, what is her experience of how a man should show up to repair any damage that he may have caused in those early stages that you talked about when he was finding himself? What would Julie tell us?
Well, I think there's two things. One, gratitude. One of the things that I'm so blessed with is we're looking for the light, the love, and the lessons in each other. So, early on in my marriage, Leigh Steinberg, who I work with, told me I could leave early to get back down to San Diego so I could spend time with my family. And a lot of times he abused that promise. And so I would drive home thinking to myself, I'm going to be in so much trouble. She's going to be so mad at me. And I get exactly what I was looking for. And once I learned to find the light, the love, and lessons, I'm so blessed to not only have such a beautiful wife, but an appreciative one and a patient one who's going to be so glad to see me and be grateful of all that I'm doing for our family to achieve what we want to achieve. That's what I got. And so I think that's the first thing, that she started to look at what she wanted in me. And then the second one would be effective communication. She's not a yes person. In fact, she's my savior, my life. And I choke up talking about her. But beyond that, I actually have, I'm inherent. I have a quantum nature to oversell. I'm a natural born salesman. So I oversell, I manipulate, I cheat, I lie. It's inherent. I can see it in my great grandparents, and my dad. It's an inherent being. So I need someone that's truthful. And I've asked my wife, if you hear me exaggerating, you ever hear me lying, you need to call me out and embarrass me in front of everyone. It's not something that you say in I want you to correct my mistake in front of everyone. I want you to say, that is not true. This is true. Now, she does that naturally, which is why I love her, but I've also given her permission to do so. It's as well to give permission to people to say, you don't have to lie to me, or you can feel comfortable telling me. She does all these things all the time. Because the first, we joke around, I'm friends with Teddy and Eddie, Teddy Mellencamp, and they're 10-year married, newly, and they bicker, and we used to bicker. And she asked my wife, Julie, do you guys, ever argue? And Julie said, Dave and I have had in the last 10 years, probably 3 arguments. And she looked like, oh my God, girl, I want your secret. Like, how did you do that? And I said, whoa, before you're so impressed, ask her how many times we argued in the first 10 years. And Julie said 3 times a day. And the difference was we learned to communicate with one another, that we, and I just look at her now and I it's exactly what I intend. And she is my priority. She's my non-negotiable. Beyond my health is my number one non-negotiable because of her, right? When I made back all my money, I asked her, I said, I'm so blessed. You saved my life. I would not be where I am without you. What can I do for you? And she said, take care of yourself, because you can't take care of everyone else unless you take care of yourself, and you're not taking care of yourself. You're putting your family first, activity you get paid for second. There's no room for your health, because nobody's going to go work out when they prioritize their family first and activity. There's always, it's an abundance of time that you want to spend with your family and to make money. So I have now made my non-negotiable my health, then my family, then my activity I got paid for. I'm blessed to have her.
And I can hear that heartfelt appreciation and gratitude for your journey. In an interview with Kevin O'Leary, he talked about, and this ties into entrepreneur, I'd love to hear your perspective on it, that one of the most important decisions we ever make is who we marry, especially as an entrepreneur. So what can you share to women in particular from a male's perspective, and how they can best support a spouse on an entrepreneur journey?
Well, I think one is the honesty, to be that sounding board. Um, but I think a lot of it has to do with the balance that you, as a spouse of an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to have an agreed upon time to be spent every day with the family. I believe 2 minutes a day is worth more than 2 hours on a Saturday. See, the problem with most families that are entrepreneurial, and this is true about military people as well and athletes as well, is that when we're with our family, we feel guilty that we're not doing our entrepreneurial, we're not working. When we're working, we feel guilty we're not with our family. And so what we need to do as a couple is prioritize together. So my wife and I, every quarter, we go to Pelican Hill here for a stay vacation, and we separate for a 2-hour period, and we write out what we want individually, what we want. Then we come back together and we sit down and go over what we want, and we compare notes. Oh, we both want this. I didn't know you wanted that. Oh, right. And we work out a plan, right, of what we want. And then we have that communication and alignment, where I think in entrepreneurial side, it's nobody's sitting there and everyone feels guilty all the time. They're focusing on what's missing instead of prioritizing together, saying, here's what we're going to do. Me and my wife, I spend a minimum of 30 minutes a day with my wife. I spend a minimum of 30 minutes a day with my 11-year-old. I spend a minimum of 2 minutes a day with my 3 teenage daughters. I asked for 5, they gave me 2. And I spend, my most valuable lesson through this is I spend a minute minimum a day with my mom, and to tell her 4 things. I think the greatest lesson I learned is what a parent really wants, because so many ignorant, arrogant parents out there, because they're so afraid for their children, they love their children so much, they cause more damage to the relationship because they can't tell their children they only want 4 things. Here's the 4 things I tell my mom every day. 1, I'm healthy. That's probably the most powerful thing you can tell a parent, especially as you get older. I'm so healthy, Mom. 2, I'm happy. Second most important things, because most parents are settled with those 2. But if you can add in that you appreciate them, meaning they have add value to their life. As you had stated, when I talk about my wife, it's in pure appreciation. When I talk about my mom, it's they've added so much value to my life. And then finally, just reaffirming that you love them. I'm healthy, I'm happy, I appreciate you, and I love you, Mom. If you tell your mother that every single day, no matter how old you are, your relationship will flourish. You'll clear the unconscious competencies and the subconscious insecurities and the trigger of the egos, because there's nothing that creates a greater fear than a mother for her child. And if you can reduce that interference, I promise you, your relationship will flourish.
Reduce that interference, your relationship will flourish. Absolutely. I think there's so much there for people to really chew on. That's really impactful in so many ways. As we're talking about the entrepreneur journey in particular, as we start rounding up, you have not only the top entrepreneur podcast, the playbook, but you also have you're the executive producer of the entrepreneur's #1 digital business show, The Elevator Pitch. And today we are seeing more entrepreneurs than ever, David. So what if we were pulling back the curtain, right? We're pulling back the curtain and we're seeing you in your reflective space. I mean, what would you say are some of the top mistakes that you see that entrepreneurs are making today that get into the way of their journey to what they would consider success?
Oh, that's simple. They don't ask for help.
Hmm.
Entrepreneurs, that's how I lost everything, right? I could do it on my own. That the humility comes in from doing it on your own when it actually comes from asking for help. It's so easy to find someone that sits in the situation you want to be in and ask them for help, and so much easier to get to where you want to be when you're already talking to someone that's already there than it is to figuring out yourself. See, I have a term called the dummy tax, and I paid a lot of dummy tax, more than most people will ever make in their lifetime. And why should you have to pay that if I've already paid it? See, it's the only shared. Wouldn't it be nice that you could tell me, Dave, I've paid my taxes and we'll credit it towards you? That'd be beautiful, right? Well, I can do that for you with a much more expensive tax. See, I've paid the taxes already. I've paid the dummy tax. Come to me, ask for help, allow me to take you to where I'm already at by giving you directions. I've already learned the lessons. And so number one by far, and then two is called segmentation. The other problem is timing of compound interest of good behavior and bad behavior. Like anything else, it's a mathematical universe. And what happens is it takes 90% of the time to see a result in a business. And so before they get to the 90% of the effort, we start thinking about what other people are saying, what's missing, what we don't have, or that little voice inside of us, and we quit. See, and most entrepreneurs quit way too early. And if I told you, for example, it would take you 20 years to have a profitable business, and I guaranteed it, even though I guaranteed it, 99% of the people would quit before the 18th year, because it would take 18 years through compound interest, right? 18 years to get to 25% of profitability. But in the 19th year, you'd be at 50% of profitability. And then in the 20th year, you'd be at 100%. In 21, you'd be at 200%. The problem is they don't see, when you're negative on year one and it's doubling and doubling and doubling. I did the same thing to build my audience. I have one of the top podcasts in the world, and I started with 2 ambassadors. I wanted 2 people in year one to tell people, you got to listen to Dave Meltzer's playbook. It's amazing. And if that happened, I told Gary Vee himself, because I was working on his sports agents, I said, dude, my podcast will be way bigger than yours when I'm 70. He said, what are you talking about? I said, because if I just get 2 ambassadors a year that love my show and will tell 2 other ambassadors a year, I'll have 2 million ambassadors when I'm 70, getting me 2 million ambassadors. And the next year, 4 million, getting me 4 million. So between those 2 things, we lose our entrepreneurs because they don't ask for help and they don't understand compound interest.
They don't ask for help and they don't understand compound interest. So today, let's ask for help and understand compound interest. One of the questions I have to ask you before we wrap up, I'm a mother of a 9-year-old Rylan and your 11-year-old Miles. So I got to ask about that. So your son Miles. So hang with me there for imagine. He's 35 years old right now, and he's getting his mental health checkup, David. And he finds his safe place right here in America's favorite psychotherapist's office. And she asked him about his childhood. And she asked him to reflect on who his father was to him in his younger years and how he has impacted his life. What does he tell me? What does he say?
Kindness. My dad's kind. He taught me kindness, taught me to be kind to my future self, to do good deeds. That's easy.
Kindness truly, truly is a superpower. And that's exactly what I teach my 9-year-old Rylan. So what's next for David? When we think about how those that are listening or those that are introduced to you for the first time, how can we follow you? How can we support you? And what's your next?
For me, I've been doing trainings for over 21 years. I'm creating more and more content. I have more and more TV shows. I have office hours on the first late night entrepreneur show on Bloomberg. I have 2-minute drill. I just signed a really big streaming deal with the biggest streaming company in the world. So we have a content deal that we'll be announcing here in the next couple of weeks. So, for me, it's more content, more modified content, more amplified content, and more perpetual content for one person to empower others, to be happy, to teach people through values and basic daily practices how to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun, how to get what you want rapidly and accurately, how to live in the law of gravity, be happy and appreciate where you are because you're at the right place at the perfect time, happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy, to understand the law of Goya with productivity, accessibility, and gratitude, get off your ass, make it happen so that you can clear the interference between you and that omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing source that loves you as much as your mom loves you. If you institute the law of gravity, Goya, and the law of attraction, I promise you, you will live in abundance, a world of more than enough of everything for everyone.
More than enough. Awesome. So real briefly, because I didn't mention it, tell us a little bit about office hours. Tell us about your vision and what you do there and how we can follow those who want to follow you and watch.
Everybody, please reach out to me, by the way, david@dmeltzer.com. For your audience, I will sign a copy of that book behind you. I will pay for the book and shipping for your audience, or the 5 daily practices, or both. So please, david@dmeltzer.com. But office hours is trying to leverage. I have been blessed to elevate the spirit of excellence, to surround myself with billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes, and entertainers. And instead of talking about what everyone else talks about, I have a late night show that talks about their perspective of entrepreneurship and business. And so I have Cameron Diaz talking about her entrepreneurial journey. I have Sadhguru talking about his entrepreneurial journey. I have Rob Dyrdek. I have Apollo Ono, Marshall Falk. The list goes on with the 72 biggest names in the world, all talking about how to make money, help people, and have fun.
Well, I know we're not supposed to say this, David, but do you have a favorite who you interviewed? Who's the
Sadhguru.
funnest?
I will tell you, Sadhguru is still my favorite interview of all times. He's the wisest human being I've ever spoken to, and it just changed my soul forever.
Awesome. So give us one more time how people can follow you, how they can find you.
At David Meltzer, remember the name David Meltzer. David@dmeltzer.com. I answer my own emails. Like I said, for your community, I'd be happy to sign a book, send it to them, pay for shipping. I will get it all to your clients as well. So thank you so much.
Well, we certainly appreciate that gift, and we appreciate the gift of time and the gift of value that you brought to Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacy today. So in the words of our special guest, David Meltzer, you will change your life and be filled with gratitude if you learn to say thank you every day when you get up and before you go to sleep. Be thankful for the lessons you've learned in the past and for the opportunity to keep moving forward. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Janie Lacy.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's Talk About It can be heard live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Please join your host, Dr. Janie Lacy, for another edition of the show next week.